I'm Sam Peterson, the rape prevention educator with Durham Crisis Response Center. The material that I'm going to be talking about today can be very stressful and can be activating for those of us who have experienced trauma, online or off. If you experience some kind of activation when you are listening or watching this video, please close your laptop, step away from your laptop or your PC, feel your feet on the floor, take some deep breaths, and reorient yourself in space and time. There's no reason to upset yourself by pushing through a video. So please take care of yourself when you're listening or watching this. And with that, we'll proceed. Hi, I'm Sam Peterson. I'm the rape prevention educator for Durham Crisis Response Center, and today we are going to be talking about cyberbullying and sexual assault. If you've talked with your children, if you've dated using apps, if you have any social media presence at all, then you're probably all too familiar with the perils of being online. Online harassment is no less harmful because it happens online. Virtual harassment can lead lasting harm as the content is often public, unerasable, and just as emotionally damaging as in-person harassment. Online harassment and bullying are extremely common. 41% of Americans have been personally subjected to harassing behavior online, and an even larger share, 66%, have witnessed these behaviors directed at others. People from historically oppressed groups are more likely to have been harassed online, and that harassment is likely to have been more severe. Online harassment mirrors the inequalities we see everywhere in society, often including racist, sexist, transphobic, homophobic, ableist, and other hate speech based on aspects of someone's identity. Victims of online harassment often have little recourse. Due to the anonymity of the internet, a lot of victims have no idea who's behind the harassment and have few avenues to make it stop, even when they do know the person who's causing them harm. Just log off isn't always an effective solution. Pushing the victim to no longer participate in their online spaces just to avoid being harassed is victim blaming. Instead of expecting victims to change their behavior and limit their online presence, we should address the root causes of online harassment by taking the issue seriously and holding people who commit online harassment accountable. A lot of people rely on virtual spaces to stay connected with loved ones. We all have social interactions in this way. Access to online spaces can be a healing resource to those who have experienced online harassment. Online sexual abuse can be any type of sexual harassment, exploitation, or abuse that occurs through screens. Forms of online sexual harassment abuse include sending someone unwelcome communications or hateful comments based on sex, gender identity, or sexual orientation, sending partners, friends, acquaintances, or strangers unwanted requests for nude photos or videos, or to live stream sex acts, performing sexual acts on a webcam without the consent of everybody or inappropriate settings like on online class or an online work meeting, sharing private images or videos without the consent of everybody involved, also known as revenge porn or non-consensual pornography, which as of February 2021 is illegal in 46 states, including Washington, D.C., and that includes North Carolina. Sharing porn in spaces where not everyone is consented to view it, for example, in inappropriate spaces like Zoom meetings, where this is also called Zoom bombing. Sharing porn in spaces where not everybody has consented to view it. Grooming children to enable their sexual abuse either online or offline. As technology has evolved to become part of our everyday lives, our awareness of it, of the ways that it can be used to bully or to threaten and abuse has grown as well. Just over the past few decades, terms like sextortion, revenge porn, and doxing have entered into the public lexicon. Other examples of common abusive behaviors online include creating or posting child sexual abuse materials, sometimes called child pornography, online harassment, or posting unsolicited explicit images. These examples represent a fraction of the ways that consent and boundaries can be violated online. Some acts are identified as criminal under the law. Others violate policies that are put in place by online platforms like Zoom or Instagram, while still so many acts of sexual violence online are normalized and not taken seriously. Sometimes violence is initiated online and then takes place in person, and other times the violence takes place entirely behind screens. Even though the abuse occurs virtually, the impact on the victim, their loved ones, and the community can be just as harmful as sexual abuse that has taken place in person. The reality is that online sexual abuse is influenced by the same attitudes and beliefs that lead to sexual violence that's committed in person. These shared risk factors include social norms that directly or indirectly condone violence, traditional harmful ideas about masculinity, and attitudes that devalue and degrade women. LGBTQIA plus people, people of color, people with disabilities, and other marginalized communities are also at high risk. A safe online space is one that is inclusive, where everybody is treated with respect and dignity. Online sexual abuse can include any form of sexual harassment, exploitation, or abuse that takes place through the use of devices. As technology and the internet has become integral in our daily life, our awareness of the ways it can be used to perpetrate harm requires equal attention. New concepts like these words like sextortion, revenge porn, and doxing have become widespread concerns and realities for victims. Learning how digital harm can occur and in what form it takes is a crucial starting point. Here is a glossary of terms. Astroturfing refers to campaigns of negative attention which appear to be genuine public responses but are actually coordinated by one person or a group. This can be similar to a cyber mob, which is a large group of abusers that are collectively attacking a target through threats and insults. But a cyber mob appears to be less threatening and is harder to detect. For example, a business owner could make multiple fake Yelp accounts to leave low reviews for a competing business. Catfishing refers to the act of pretending to be someone else online in order to lure, befriend, date, or have contact with someone else who is unaware of the true identity of the person. The popular MTV show Catfish has chronicled online relationships where one person was giving fake or inaccurate information about their identity, often posing as someone else. Cyberflashing or unwanted nudes, frequently called dick pics, refers to sending unrequested nude photos to someone without their consent. For example, sports writer Jen Sturger has become an activist against sexual harassment in the sports media industry after she was continually harassed and cyberflashed by Brett Favre, whom she had never met or even spoken to. Cyberstalking refers to the act of pushing continued unwanted contact on someone through the use of online platforms, portals, and technology. Cyberstalking may involve sending unwanted messages, joining groups the victim joins, or paying hyper-focused attention without the victim's consent. Dead naming refers to outing a trans person by calling them a previous name or the birth name that they no longer wish to be called. For example, the dead naming of Elliot Page by countless media outlets led to a surge of anti-dead naming campaigns, which explain why it is harmful to not respect people's chosen names and pronouns. Deep fake refers to the creation of fake images, audio or video, which are artificially generated to look real. According to the Boston Globe, deep fakes expertly mimic, quote, speech or facial expressions so as to make it appear that someone has said or done something they haven't, unquote. For instance, the Star Wars franchise uses deepfake technology to recreate old scenes with Princess Leia after Carrie Fisher died. But this technology is often hijacked to use people's image without their consent in harassing or harmful ways. Doxxing. Doxing refers to revealing the identity, the name, the address, or personal details of someone who goes by an alias or screen name or whose information was previously not public. Doxing often gives the harassers intimate details of the victim, which encourages further abuse against them, including death threats. The writer Rebecca Scheffler shared in a harrowing Vox article about the story of a stranger publishing her personal information on an explicit Craigslist ad. This is often used in the political realm as well to create harassment of opponents, for instance. Hacking. Hacking refers to accessing someone's account, profile, or computer or technology without their consent in order to get information, to alter the content, or to pose as them. Hacking poses a serious security threat. There have been several cases in which hackers accessed celebrities' personal technology and leaked images of them without their consent. Phishing. Phishing refers to a scam to steal someone's money, often through a fake offer or false claim, which appears as if it's from a trusted source, like a friend or family or work. Phishing scams might take the shape of, they can look like fake invoices, bills, or fake emails that demand urgent reply. Um, Revenge porn refers to the intentional or malicious sharing of intimate images or videos which may or may not have been taken with the consent of the person, usually done to intimidate, humiliate, or slander the victim. One of the earliest known cases of revenge porn was when Hugh Hefner published nude photos of Marilyn Monroe without her consent in the first issues of Playboy magazine in 1953. 1953. Since then, 1 in 25 Americans has been the victim of revenge porn. Sextortion refers to threatening to expose images or video of someone against their will as a form of blackmail to control or manipulate them. Sextortion is often used to coerce victims into for sexual or personal or financial gain. Trolling refers to the act of intentionally upsetting, disrespecting, or not taking online users' content seriously. A troll is someone who posts inflammatory, insincere, digressive, extraneous, or off-topic messages in an online community. We've all been familiar with this behavior, and it's with the intent of provoking the reader into displaying some sort of response, having some sort of emotional response, or manipulating other people's views about the person. Zoom bombing is the unwanted disruption or infiltration of an online meeting by uninvited members. Often includes insults and harassments. In my experience, a Zoom bomber has repeatedly infiltrated a meeting I attend with highly pornographic and disturbing images. Um, they usually come in with a different name and they change their profile, the audio or visual once they're established in the meeting. And Zoom bombers harass the participants and create disruptions. And I want to reiterate that this all sounds very dry and flat when I'm telling you this glossary, but these are all potentially extremely harmful and extremely disruptive and even traumatizing experiences. Understanding the impact of online trauma. Trauma is an intense experience that causes overwhelming emotional and psychological stress. This can include a single event, like an accident or an assault, as well as ongoing experiences that can threaten your well being. Just because some forms of sexual abuse take place behind the screen does not make their impact on the victim any less real. While some of these behaviors are crimes, particularly any that involve sexual abuse of children, even acts that are not classified as criminal can cause trauma. Victims can experience added layers of re-victimization if images of abuse are reshared and recirculated on the internet. So, in other words, people can take whatever they're using to cause trauma and then keep recirculating it and keep re-traumatizing that person. Each person reacts to traumatic experiences in very different ways, both in the immediate aftermath and the long term. They may feel guilt or shame, fear, anxiety, sadness, numbness, shock, withdrawal, and isolation. They could have trouble sleeping, they could have nightmares, difficulty concentrating, and feelings of like being startled and on edge. Many of us have experienced stress firsthand when we've received a disrespectful or dehumanizing or vulgar or even threatening comment online. Although these experiences are unfortunately way too common in the online world, that doesn't mean they are any less harmful. Coping and healing require acknowledging the impact of online sexual abuse without dismissiveness, judgment, minimization, or shame. Trauma-informed online spaces. When building communities, whether online or in person, remember that many of the people that you're dealing with have experienced some form of trauma. Being trauma informed means taking into consideration a person's experience of trauma and their reactions to it. We can create trauma-informed safe spaces when building communities, whether online or in person. Well, we give participants choices about how to engage. In this instance, by not requiring that everybody turn their camera on, by developing community agreements about how people should interact or can interact in that space. Informing participants as much as is possible about what to expect in the space, like how long the event's going to take, or encouraging self-care, letting participants know that it's okay if they need to step away or log off, and provide some examples of how they can recenter if they need to. Making it clear if and how information is going to be shared in the space and outside the space. One of your community agreements, for instance, could include not repeating other people's personal stories within the space so that participants feel comfortable. I had an experience of sharing some personal information in a workshop one time, and one of the people I was telling this my secrets or my deep personal information to went and told the entire group. So, and it was deeply upsetting to me. So that could be one of your community agreements. Connecting participants to the support they may need. Let people know where they can go for help if something in the online community is triggering. Online sexual abuse and resources for survivors. Just like with abuse that takes place in real life, physically, online sexual harassment and abuse can be traumatic. I can't say it enough. Online sexual harassment and abuse can threaten a person's sense of safety and overwhelm the nervous system in the same ways that in-person harm and physical threats can. Finding support online. Online sexual abuse can be traumatic, and if left untreated, can lead to PTSD and other long-term health issues. If you've experienced online sexual abuse, please know that you are not alone and the harm that you have experienced is valid and support is out there. Some online resources for survivors include local sexual assault resource centers like DCRC. The centers like ours can help survivors of abuse no matter when the abuse occurred and no matter if a report was made to the police. You can find your local center by using a directory online or searching your state anti-sexual violence coalition for more resources in your area. Local sexual assault advocates will let you know what their services are and what's available to support survivors, whether virtually or in person in your community. The National Sexual Assault Hotline. Volunteers offer support 24/7 to survivors and their loved ones. Whether you're looking for help, advice, or a referral, you can call 800-656-HOPE to be connected to your local sexual assault resource center or to chat online with a trained support specialist. That's 800-656-HOPE. Message boards, forums, and groups. Survivors are connecting online through communities and forums and message boards. For example, on subreddits like Support for Sexual Assault Survivors, yes, that's an actual subreddit, many survivors are sharing their stories with others. While they're a less formal form of support, these online spaces provide a platform where survivors can share experiences and help one another. The danger there is that it could be re-traumatizing. So tread gently, tread lightly when you're seeking online non-official support. We can prevent online sexual assault, harassment, and abuse. We can prevent it. We can stop sexual harassment and abuse before it happens by addressing the bigger picture in which these things occur. The driving forces behind sexual violence can be hard to see, but they're often based on attitudes, social norms, and social systems that support unequal treatment of certain groups over others. You know where I'm going with this. That's why we need to make changes in our communities when trying to prevent sexual harassment and abuse. We also need to understand our roles as individuals to interrupt problematic behaviors and as communities to push back against policies that contribute to an environment where sexual violence is normalized or not taken seriously. Preventing sexual violence means addressing the root causes, including beliefs about gender equity, forms of oppression such as racism, transphobia, ableism, and social systems that reinforce power over others. So, what does it mean to prevent sexual violence online? What does it mean? There are ways we can keep our online spaces safe, both as leaders and as individuals. Leaders can take steps to secure their online spaces from outside threats, implement policies that promote equality and respect, take reports of harassment or abuse seriously, and hold those responsible accountable. Individually, we can step in when we come across problematic or harmful comments, behaviors, or content. We can also educate one another and advocate for leaders to take meaningful action. Community level prevention means moving beyond individual actions to target the characteristics of a community. Things like community norms, cultural climates, and policies to reduce the likelihood that people will perpetuate and perpetrate sexual violence. Community level prevention refers to more than just where people live. It also means workplaces, campuses, organizations, or any space, online or otherwise, that can have their own policies and rules that impact one another. Community level prevention benefits everyone in the community, even if they were not part of creating the prevention efforts. What does community prevention look like? Let's look at one example of preventing sexual violence in the community. School dress codes. Dress codes are notorious for being applied inequitably. Often girls' clothes are the most policed, and Black students and students of color often face additional rules around hairstyles. The argument that girls' appearances may distract boys blames girls for being sexualized by their peers rather than teaching boys not to objectify their classmates. Since one of the underlying causes of sexual harassment is sexist attitudes and behaviors, it makes sense that in order to stop sexual harassment from happening in the first place, we need to change sexist behaviors, like telling girls their bodies are inappropriate or distracting. By updating and eliminating dress codes, schools are setting a new norm and sending the message that sexism and harassment will not be tolerated. Creating inclusive online communities. Oppression is a root cause of sexual violence, both online and offline. In order to create safe online communities, we've got to prioritize inclusion. And that means people of various races, ethnicities, cultures, sexualities, and abilities feel welcome and supported in a space. What does inclusive online community look like? Well, for starters, the space is accessible to those who speak another language through interpretation or translation. We are working on this at this time. Accessibility is also key for people with disabilities, even online. Inclusivity in online spaces also means creating a community where people can share their perspectives and opinions in an open-minded and non-judgmental setting. This is where moderation is crucial. Assign someone to keep an eye on ongoing conversations who can intervene and remind participants of their community agreements if the conversation starts to become harmful, goes off the rails. Implementing community level prevention in online spaces. Just like in in-person space, online communities can develop their own policies and rules that promote respect and discourage harmful behaviors. Whether you're taking part in an online classroom, workspace, or social space, you can take steps to ensure the safety of yourself and others. Leaders who are facilitating the space can create community agreements with participants so the expectation around respectful communications are clear to everybody involved. Instead of issuing a zero tolerance policy around sexual harassment, name specific behaviors that will not be tolerated and how those who do harm will be asked to take accountability. Provide a way that victims can report harassment or abuse if another group member's behavior is making them uncomfortable. Establish community norms around appropriate ways for group members to communicate with one another. This might mean identifying the hours of the day that group members can contact one another, or on what apps or platforms. Keep participants safe by making sure that the platforms you use are secure and that security settings protect users' privacy, personal information, and location. Safe online communities take action. Behaviors or actions like sexist jokes, victim blaming comments can seem like they're not that big of a deal, but they contribute in the same way or thinking that fuels violence. Although they only reflect a point of view of the person making them, their public visibility normalizes not taking sexual assault seriously. In other cases, they may cause harm by re traumatizing victims of abuse or assault who read them. Recognizing victim blaming or minimizing language. Victim blaming comments may include comments that question the victim's actions before and after an assault, like wondering why someone didn't immediately make a police report or questioning why they never reported. Comments that minimize what happened to a victim, like a journalist could use forced sex, sexual encounter, or underage sex, when what they really mean is sexual assault or statutory rape. The reality is that the digital world is not separate from in person spaces. They both make up the world we live in, and the impact of our actions can be just the same. If you wouldn't say something to a person in person, then you shouldn't say it to them online. We can do something when we observe harmful behaviors online. We can report inappropriate contact. We, if you see personal or violent content on a social media platform, you can report it to the platform it was shared on, like Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, etc., in order to have it flagged or removed. Different platforms have their own guidelines on what counts as inappropriate and what actions they'll take, but the process starts with you making a report. Respond when you see harmful comments. When you see comments that blame victims for what happened to them, you can respond by refocusing accountability on the perpetrator. While you might not change the mind of the person that left the comment, others will see that and they will understand that not everybody agrees with that person. Show your support to victims of online harassment. Check in with that person that comments have been directed at to show your support. You can also consider volunteering to be a moderator in certain contexts to help prevent future harassment. When all of us see our role in keeping others safe online, we can create an environment where this type of content cannot thrive. Thank you for coming today. And remember, we are Durham Crisis Response Center here in Durham, North Carolina. Thank you.